of the street, where the three roads meet, and the feet of the people as they pass go tweet, tweet, tweet. Who comes tripping round the corner of the street? One pair of shoes, which are nurses, one pair of slippers, which are Percy's. Tweet, tweet, tweet. Page 4, Buckingham Palace. Now, the illustration at the top of this is a picture of the palace where the king and queen live, and there are huge, great big high fences, and there are guards on either side of the gate, and there are guards inside the gate. So you can see them way in the background by the big windows. And there is the nurse and the little boy, who is Christopher Robin, and the nurse's name is Alice, and they're standing outside the castle looking into the castle at the windows past the guards. End illustration. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. Alice is marrying one of the guards. A soldier's life is terrible hard, says Alice. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. We saw a guard in a sentry box. One of the sergeants looks after their socks, says Alice. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. We looked for the king, but he never came. Well, God take care of him all the same, says Alice. Page 5. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. They've great big parties inside the grounds. I wouldn't be king for £100, says Alice. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. A face looked out, but it wasn't the king's. He's much too busy assigning things, says Alice. They're changing guard at Buckingham Palace. Christopher Robin went down with Alice. Do you think the king knows all about me? Sure to do, dear, but it's time for tea, says Alice. Now, at the bottom of this page, on the left-hand side, there's Christopher Robin, and he's saluting the guard that's standing facing him, and he's really standing up very tall and very, very straight. And on top of his head is a big black furry hat, and those are called busbies. Isn't that interesting? And he's got a gun over his shoulder, and he's got a red coat and striped pants. And he's looking very, very tall, and Christopher Robin's looking very, very small. End illustration. Page 6, Happiness. John had great big waterproof boots on. John had a great big waterproof hat. John had a great big waterproof mackintosh. And that, said John, is that. Now, the first illustration is John with his great big waterproof boots on and his great big hat. His hat's so big it covers his head. Then he's putting on, the second illustration, he's putting on his great big waterproof mackintosh, which we call a raincoat, actually. It's called mackintosh in England, I think. Well, we call it mackintosh here, too. And he's still got on his great big boots and his great big hat. And the third illustration is he's standing out in this big puddle in the rain, in the country, because you can tell there's not got great big buildings, there are lots of trees. He's got this big smile on his face, and he's got his big mackintosh on and his big boots and his big rain hat. And there are ducks playing in this pond in the rain, and one of them's upside down with his tail in the air. And the other one's kind of swimming around, and the other one looks just as happy as Christopher does. Oh, no, it's John. That's John. That's right. And looks just as happy as John, and the duck's kind of smiling and flapping his wings and having a lovely time. And that's the end of that illustration. Page 7, the christening. Now, there's an illustration here at the top of this page, and there's this little boy who's standing looking at a table, and he's quite small, the little boy, so his head comes just barely above the table, and on the table is, what do you suppose that is? It's very small. It's a mouse. Oh, my goodness, look at that. He's so cute. End illustration. What shall I call my dear little dormouse? His eyes are small, but his tail is enormous. I sometimes call him Terrible John, because his tail goes on and on and on. And I sometimes call him Terrible Jack, because his tail goes on to the end of his back. And I sometimes call him Terrible James, because he likes me calling him names. But I think I shall call him Jim, because I am so fond of him. Page 8, Puppy and I. Now there's an illustration over here. There's a very tall man in a pair of boots, and his pants are stuck inside his boots. He's wearing a big coat, and he's got on a hat. And there's this little boy is looking up at him with his hands on his hips. End illustration. I met a man as I went walking. We got talking, man and I. Where are you going to, man? I said. I said to the man as he went by. Down to the village to get some bread. Will you come with me? No, not I. And the illustration for this next verse is the same little boy talking to this huge horse who's got his head bent down so that he can pat him on the nose. End of illustration. I met a horse as I went walking. We got talking, horse and I. Where are you going to, horse, today? I said to the horse as he went by. Down to the village to get some hay. Will you come with me? No, not I. Page 9. Now there's an illustration for this, and it's a woman with a basket. She has a hat. She's got a basket on her arm, and she's wearing a long dress and an apron, and the little boy's looking up and talking to her. End illustration. I met a woman as I went walking. We got talking, woman and I. Where are you going to, woman, so early? I said to the woman as she went by. Down to the village to get some barley. Will you come with me? No, not I. Now the next illustration is the little boy. He's kneeling down on the grass. He's got his head in his hands, and he's looking straight into a bunny rabbit's face, and there are two little bunny rabbits right behind this one, right behind the bunny rabbit he's talking to. End illustration. I met some rabbits as I went walking. We got talking, rabbits and I. Where are you going in your brown fur coats? I said to the rabbits as they went by. Down to the village to get some oats. Will you come with us? No, not I. Page 10. The illustration for this is the little boy. He's running through kind of a field, and he's got his handful of leaves, and he's kind of throwing them around. And in front of him is this little black puppy who looks like he's having a wonderful time. I met a puppy as I went walking. We got talking, puppy and I. Where are you going this fine day? I said to the puppy as he went by. Up in the hills to roll and play. I'll come with you, puppy, said I.